everyone. Today I'm going to talk about this article, Developing an Intercultural Citizenship Community. My talk will be divided into three parts. The first one is the introduction of background and the methodology of this article. Second is about the content of this research. And the last one is conclusion. This is the abstract of this article. I have highlighted its objectives, scope, findings, and conclusion so that everyone can browse it easier. Okay, about the background, the population of Taiwan is made up of four main ethnic groups, each of which has its own language. At the time of the colonization, Hakka speakers were about 15% of the total population, and the speakers of the original languages were about 2%, and the mainlanders about 13%, and the speaker of Southern Ming, the majority language, about 70%. During this time, there was a ruling class of mainlanders, most of whom can speak some forms of Mandarin, and a lower class of people comprising Southern Ming, Hakka speakers, and there was no way for these groups to communicate with each other without translation. Within this context, it was not surprising that the national education system was subjected to tight KMT government control because language and education has always been regarded as the important pillar to in group identity maintenance. So Yang and his colleagues pointed out that the national language played an instrumental role um, in unifying the peoples of Taiwan. About the methodology, the author thinks that the rising growth of qualitative approaches in historical research from the historical and the sociological perspectives can provide insight into understanding educational issues. And thus, the researcher worked on this historical qualitative approach in order to understand the language educational issues and cultural identities. So, two major sources of data were selected to collect information to answer the purpose of the study. They were analyses of historical documentary, primary and secondary sources, and the first-hand accounts of seven key interviewees during in-depth interviews. Actually, for the KMT government, language education was a highly political agenda after it took over Taiwan from Japan, and the promotion of a Mandarin only movement was crucial to a project of re socialization. So they made some regulations to achieve this purpose. We may observe the repeated use of must, have to deliberately prepare the Taiwanese people to work up towards the goal of language unity. It is the one nation, one language, and one linguistic identity. Mm, From from 1970 to 1986, the period of complete Chinese monoculturalism ideology, the KMT's language ideology was realized through several further approaches as summarized in Table 3. Again, there is intentional use of should and must to naturalize the ideological conviction. That is the goal of building Chinese monoculturalism through the national language. And the KMT governments dominate uh, the linguistic attitude derived from preference and prejudice was allied with powerful protective sentiments for its own group, and thus a linguistic hierarchy of language was established. Only Mandarin was dignified with the title of language, and all non-Mandarin native languages in Taiwan, including Southern Ming, Hakka speakers, um, they they were elected to dialects, a marker of backwardness in literacy and low social economic status. In a later but similar development on the part of the native Taiwanese oppositionists, the second half of the 1980s saw the rapid development of Taiwanese monoculturalism and monolingualism with a distinct Taiwanese ethnic colors. Uh, in the early 1980s, and there were many linguistic struggles and some debates about improving the status of native languages. And in the second half of the 1980s, many different kinds of activities, movements, conferences, and teaching about native language education were promoted. They, there are the goals of the native language movement. So, according to the movement, we can understand that mother tongue is crucial to maintaining the identity, and it is important to maintain their language and the culture because losing our ethnic group's language is like committing cultural suicide. These are the conclusions about this of this article. Uh, as stated above, in addition to the main theme of the study tracing the ideology of monocultural identity, there is a sub-theme concerning the tension in linguistic identity in education between these two above mentioned major ethnic groups in Taiwan. The majority native Taiwanese or non-mainlanders and the minority Chinese or mainlanders. For it is still today an ongoing phenomenon and remains a complex issue. So, in facing a more globalized and internationalized world, Taiwan needs to accept the diversity and change. Yeah. So, seeing in this light, I guess maybe the next goal of Taiwanese native language education movement could be to promote interculturalism under this imaginary of Taiwan as a society of plural ethnic identities. Yeah, that's all my presentation of this article. Thank you.